Good evening to all and happy Pongal. My presentation is on Koinonia, a fundamental phenomenon for synodality. Acts chapter 4, verses 30 to 35, and Acts chapter 2, verses 42 to 47. I have divided my paper into two parts. The first part will be Koinonia in the early Christian community. The second part will be Koinonia is the center of the church. Introduction. Synodality means journeying together, which makes everyone a protagonist. No one can be considered a mere extra. God asked Cain, "Where is your brother Abel?" He said, "I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper?" Still, the question is very much alive. The question brought to Cain is central to Christian theology. Does one have an intrinsic obligation to care for a human being? Jesus and his followers answered Cain's question with a resounding yes. We are the keepers of our brothers and sisters. My presentation offers a brief snapshot of the early church life and how the converted at Pentecost worked out their newfound faith in the community. The disciples' experience, as reported in the Gospel, seems to have been homodumadon, means with one accord, in which they never found themselves in need. It is a model of the synodal church, where the radical transformation takes place. It is the right time to safeguard the church's credibility by listening to each category of the people in the community. Genuine listening leads the church to share responsibility, serve others, and have everything in common. The term koinonia. The Greek term koinonia, the lexical definition of this word is having something in common with someone or close association involving mutual interest and sharing. The noun koinos means in common. The verb koino is considered as to make common. The word koinonia is strongly connected with the word diakonia, which means service. Christian existence is the sharing in the diakonia. It takes the form of different expressions of fraternal charity, service to the physical and spiritual sick, needy, and prisoners. The Palestinian context. The vast majority of the Palestinians were desperately poor due to lean harvests, unfavorable weather, distribution difficulties, taxes, and chronic malnutrition. The low-income families were forced into escalating debt to pay taxes. The primary source of wealth and land was almost moving into the ruling class and wealthy. The messianic idealism comes through Jesus as a mission statement. Luke chapter 4, verses 16 to 21. It points to the principles of the ideal community. To proclaim the year of the Lord's favor includes two pertinent practices: the Jubilee year, Levitical chapter 25, and the sabbatical year, Levitical chapter 25 and Deuteronomy chapter 15. These were not merely a political economic declaration, but it is to recognize that God is the landowner and it should be given back to the poor people. The origin of synodality in Scripture. The first assembly, Kahal, was convoked by God with Abraham and his descendants. The first term, often translated into Greek as ecclesia. The kahal of the people of God consists not only of men, but also women and children and even foreigners. God used to initiate the assembly. The community of people of God was inclusive. The content was always to free the people from slavery or misery. It was a long journey of Israel with God, sharing the joy of liberation and being recognized as chosen people of God. Jerusalem church sought to emulate the lifestyle of Jesus, one who is an itinerant teacher, traveling with one group of people from village to village, relying on the hospitality of strangers. So this is Darren Duncan refers to this lifestyle as evangelistic homelessness of Jesus. Jesus sends out his disciples to evangelize to the towns and villages. He gives them instructions. Take no gold or silver or copper in your belts, etc., etc. It is a preparation for the ideal community in Acts. Apostles had no formal theological training, yet they qualified to instruct people regarding messianic idealism because of their close relationship with Jesus. They could establish the ideal community, which shows the continuity between the mission and teaching of Jesus and the church. It prefigures the subsequent mission centered on the poor and oppressed. The life of Jesus' community. The birth of Jesus' ideal community is born now. It's closely related to the day of Pentecost. As the effect of the Pentecost, believing community was continually devoted to 4 elements. The first one is didache, that is teaching. The content of the teaching was the gospel message about the resurrection. The second one is koinonia, that is fellowship. They held all things in common, chapanda koina, and sold their properties and distributed them to others. Third one is classes, breaking of bread. It serves as a sign through which the disciples recognize the risen Lord. The last one is presuke, that is prayer. It is attached to breaking of bread and shown as a characteristics of the first community. These were the 4 pillars on which the community was built. These are the central concepts of synodal church. These 4 concepts were considered as the expression of the powerful gift of the Spirit because of the manifestation of the Spirit for the commonhood. The practice of early Christians, way to the synodality. We have 4 documents: Flavius Josephus, Philo, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and Damascus document. Describe the practice of the Jerusalem church, which was already reflected in the Essenes community. The community had a theme of caring for the poor, the needy, and strangers, which enforced the moral framework for normal relationships among the community members. Early church practiced 2 kinds of sharing. The first one is informal sharing. It is regarded as a notion of freedom or voluntary action. People were so free and involved in casual sharing to help the church and the needy. There are known as philanthropists whose voluntary actions for human development was for the commonhood. The best example is documented in Acts chapter 4, verses 36 to 37, is Barnabas, the Levite, who sold his field and handed the money over to the apostles for distribution. The second one is formal sharing. The practice of the ideal community has become now more formal. The formal sharing involves the collection and distribution of funds within the structure that we can see in Acts chapter 6, verses 1 to 3, shows the systematic welfare system with its infrastructure. People were trained to sell their property when needs arose and contributed to a common fund supervised by the apostles. They elected 7 men of good standing for the daily contribution of food. Here, the bad example of Ananias and Sapphira shows the selling of property and laying of the proceeds at the apostles' feet. We learn that private property ownership was encouraged and distribution of food and other goods was systematized because of the numerous conversions. Is the commonality an exaggeration? Many scholars suggest that the practice of the basic concepts of an ideal community, that is, the sacrificial sharing, all things in common, and no one was in need, could quickly be taken as an idealized exaggeration. John Calvin stresses that the view of one mind and one heart is the kind of spirituality that never reaches the nitty-gritty of life. Greek utopian phrase says, friends have all things in common. James Dunn comments that the ideal community lifestyle did not exist long because the first Christians expected the risen and exalted Jesus to return soon and restore all. John Crossan says the title is given to Christians in Jerusalem, the poor, which requires some form of commonality, some communal lifestyle, some degree of difference between the Jerusalem community and other Christian communities. Fitzmyer made precise comment that nothing is said how long common property ownership was practiced. Luke might be idealizing the situation. Synodal church is supposed to concentrate more on sharing the power in the church than sharing the material things. Walking together means empowering the participatory structures, listening to each other, and reaching the goal together. Now we are shifting to the second part, power sharing in the church. Laity. Ecclesiastical pyramid participatory structure, as we are seeing in the screen, shows that the laity still doesn't know about their identity in the church. The church remains a pyramidal structure where everything comes from the hierarchy. Will Synodal Church consider including the laity's active participation in the decision-making bodies? The laity still remains a Sunday Catholics or obedient flock and doesn't feel co-responsible or co-participating in the life of the church. The church is the clergy first. The laity is often relegated to the background. Bishops will be challenged to learn and practice a new way of listening to their life experience in the church. The second one is women. Ecclesiastical pyramid participatory structure, as we are seeing in the screen, shows that the women's role in these councils and forums is still waiting for dreams and need grassroots level preparation to reach out. Will Synodal Church consider including the women's participation in the decision-making bodies? Cardinal Gracious asserts that neither church law nor theology prohibits women from participating actively in the church. At the same time, he acknowledges that bishops are not using the opportunities. They have to involve women more. Gender equality in the church remains a distant dream in India. For many decades, the leadership continues in the church to be a male domain. 30 years of practicing basic Christian communities in some dioceses could impact getting the women involved in the administrative or finance committee. But still, there is a space to be filled with the energetic women's role, at least in the executive body of parish council. We could state firmly that the essential Christian communities failed to reach out the empowerment of women's participation in the decision-making of the diocesan forum. Can we state that it shows the total failure of our infrastructure? That's up to you. What do you decide? The commendable decision of Pope Francis makes to feel the need for the synodal approach. He appointed 6 women to oversee the Vatican's finances. He trusts women in financial matters more than the highly qualified clerics and cardinals. Sister Nathaniel was appointed as the Undersecretary of the Synod of Bishops, making her the first woman to have the right to vote in the Catholic Synod of Bishops. It is a journey of sharing the responsibility of exercising the diversity of ministries and charisms. Sharing the responsibility with the women in the church needs to be rethought in new terms and a new framework than contraposition of male and female. The hierarchy should take courage to journey together with the women with enduring style in the day-to-day functioning as she functions everyday life in the family. Women expect empowerment, not mere membership in the forum. The church has numerous women forums where many women are members. They concentrate on organizing awareness programs once a year for their self-satisfaction, as we are seeing in the CWS. Clericalism. Clericalism is rooted in a theological belief. The clergy thinks that they are different to the laity, having undergone an ontological change at ordination, and feeds the notion that the clergy may not be challenged. The clerical's mind goes like this. We know scripture and theology. The laity knows only school catechism. We are the protectors of their faith. We have to watch over them. It's a sickness. A priest suffering from clericalism sees himself as a special, superior to others, and worthy of tremendous respect. It could lead to arrogance and the belittling of others. It blocks all the possibility of working together, sharing everything in common, and interpersonal relationships. Individualistic and independent approaches emerge among them and cause the exploitation of others' feelings and emotions without any guilt. It increases the risk of child abuse and financial scandals. Reforming a clericalist environment requires all aspects of formation with a critical eye. Clerical environment. The initial training of priests occurs in segregated environments, which are likely to have a detrimental effect on the psychosexual maturity of candidates. It seems logical that when a group of people is taken to an exclusive place and given special attention in a small group with others to look after boarding and lodging, feeling of separateness for many years. The same applies to the candidates who can wear cassocks and collars before ordination. The estimation of themselves as others is perfectly understandable that they are different even from their colleagues in the same parish. The clerical environment should be changed, and the church must explore other ways to prepare individuals to be a priest. Jesus never sent the disciples to the seminary or trained them in segregated environments. He taught them the kingdom values on the road. Again, once he comes out from the training, he feels like someone above the community. Instead, he should think that he is one among the people and society. The training system has produced some excellent individuals who are still struggling to mingle with the people that we are seeing every day. The current formation or segregated environment in the seminaries contributes to the shocking sexual abuse of minors exposed by investigations worldwide. To have a familial approach in their ministry, the candidates should spend time living in their parishes during formation or continue to live at home to maintain ties with the contemporaries and be involved in the practical life of the parish. The candidates will get more interaction and integration with their parishes and non-seminarian colleagues. Joint formation courses should be young lay people, young religious, and seminarians. It sets more integrated roles and responsibilities for both lay people and clerics. It gives a consistent message that the role of the priest is not to rule over the laity, but to serve the faithful. Sharing the power. The election of apostles is not the privilege of an exclusive position of power and separation, but the grace of an inclusive ministry of blessing and fellowship. There is a temptation of thinking that church is the private property of hierarchy, but the church is the church for the poor people. The power and authority are given to bishops and religious only to serve the people. Many have a temptation to hold on to the regime even after the retirement of their service. Many voices are now being raised from the people that each local ordinary can hold his office for 10 years of service and be transferred to any other diocese according to their need, or can remain in the parish as an ordinary parish priest. Mutual transfer among the bishops in the diocese may give new energy and direction to lead God's people. The diocese will also get a new leadership that has no prejudice or bias. If this unique voice from the people is to be heard in the synod of the synodality, it will be witness the sacrificial sharing of power with others. Walking together contains two components. It is not a static reality. There is a change moving from one state to another. Something new is birthed now, that is, to move from passive membership to actively assume responsibility. Achieving synodality requires new behaviors on the part of the hierarchy. Pope Paul VI, expressed in Evangelic Nuncianti, shifted the focus from the power of teachers to that of witnesses. We are called to witness the gospel, not to hold the power. Conclusion. We as Christians have an intrinsic obligation to care for one another. The fundamental phenomena of Koinonia, or sharing the materials or feeling to have everything in common, sharing power and authority, and empowering the laity and women in the community. The synodal church doesn't need merely a representation, but active participation in the decision-making forum, leading to a transformation in the church. The participatory structures in the diocese should be balanced with both genders. It is a forum where all voices should be heard, and if concrete proposals emerge, the church has a responsibility to consider them carefully. It is the right time to work together with everybody. Thank you.